Hi, I'm Grant Abbott and I'm Principal of SMSF Strategies. Today we're going to be talking about setting up a self-managed superannuation fund. Now, I'm presuming by the time you've got to this stage, you've actually done your research on self-managed super funds and decided to establish one. Now, there's a number of reasons why people go into self-managed. Generally, it's going to be control of your investments. But if I had to look at it in terms of an iceberg, control of investments is generally only around about 2 to 3%. You need to start positioning and understanding your self-managed super fund as more akin to a family superannuation fund. What it is, it's a way of aggregating all your family's superannuation benefits, setting up a vehicle that provides encouragement for people to, not only in your family to look after their retirement, but also to set aside amounts inside the fund to look after each and every one in the event that they become incapacitated, they become temporarily sick. You know, if you want to start passing benefits on and in between generations, it's really crucial that we set the fund up correctly. You need to start to look at some of the resources that are available to you in this space to educate yourself up and basically educate yourself and get yourself up and running. One of them is the Commissioner's book, DIY Super. It's your money but not yet. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on, the cans and can't do's in terms of investments. Have a look at that. That's available on the ATO website, www.ato.gov.au. There's also quite a wide range of strategic videos available on our website, the SMSF Strategies website, www.smsfstrategies.com. You also find again on the ATO website a whole lot of interpretive decisions, rulings, a whole plethora of information. In fact, there's around about 3,000 to 4,000 pages of information on the ATO website dealing with self-managed super funds. Not normal super funds, but self-managed, because they are unlike any other funds in the marketplace. They are true family funds. What we need to do is have a really good look at the things you can do and you can't do in terms of self-managed. Now, if you have made a decision to set up a self-managed super fund, the first thing you need to do is obviously get a trust deed. But it can't just be any trust deed. You have to understand the way the laws work is the laws provide opportunities. Those opportunities need to be played out and put inside the trust deed of the fund. For example, the superannuation laws, or section 67(4)(a), for those of you who are a bit more technically minded, provides that you can borrow to invest in property or shares through your superannuation fund. Westpac, NAB, a whole lot of banks now offer borrowings for self-managed super funds to invest in property. Now, it's all very well for the superannuation laws to provide this great opportunity, this strategic opportunity, but effectively if your trust deed doesn't allow borrowing, as all trust deeds prior to 2007 didn't, then effectively you cannot breach that rule. To do so would render the fund a non-complying fund, the fund taxed at a rate of 45% on the market value of the assets. For example, if we had $1 million fund, you'd be up for a $450,000 tax bill. The trustees effectively being potentially up for a couple $100,000 fine simply because they breached the trust deed. So the trust deed provides an awesome platform and really key platform. You need an up-to-date trust deed. You need one that has been written by an experienced self-managed super fund practitioner and lawyer, not someone that's been done by a retail fund lawyer or done by a big accounting firm or a large legal firm. You need someone who actually delves into this space. Of course, the SMSF Strategies Trust Deed, for those people who are utilising it, I'm going to be talking a lot more about that on a number of videos on the website. So the trust deed is absolutely crucial. We get the trust deed, we set up a trustee. My preference if we're setting up a trustee is to always set up a corporate trustee. The Commissioner released guidelines last year basically saying that if you are setting up a trustee, which is an individual trustee inside your self-managed super fund, the only benefits that can be paid out of that fund are retirement benefits. You can't pay out estate planning benefits. You can't pay out pensions to children. You can't pay out incapacity benefits. Worst of all, you can't pay out a transition to retirement income stream. There's a whole range of other reasons why a corporate trustee is an absolute must. But again, we can't just use an off-the-shelf corporate trustee. You really need to be using a special purpose corporate trustee that is solely devoted, does nothing else, has memos and articles of association that are integrated towards running as a trustee of a self-managed superannuation fund. Again, the SMSF Strategies special purpose corporate trustee fits the bill in this regard. So what we do is we've decided to go into a self-managed super fund. We've got a trustee. We've worked out we're going to have a corporate trustee or an individual trustee. Once we do that, we sign the documentation, we're off and running. We then got to go to the tax office within a 21-day period saying that we want to become a regulated super fund. Now, to be a regulated super fund is absolutely crucial because that is the way we get tax concessions. But as soon as you elect to become a regulated super fund, all the superannuation laws now start to apply to your fund. And once you've done that, that's where all the great tax concessions, the investment opportunities, the ability to borrow, all of that starts to play. So essentially, we've got our fund, we've got it up and running, we've elected to become a regulated fund, we send a notice off to the Commissioner, we've made this election. The Commissioner will then come back to us and say, well, your fund is now a complying fund. And what happens is all funds are complying to start off with. The government and the tax office give you a check mark of approval, basically saying, look, until we hear further, your fund is a complying super fund. As I mentioned before, if the fund becomes a non-complying fund, because it's breached one of the laws or breached a trust deed, you don't want that because effectively that is going to cost you 45% penalty tax on the market value of the assets of your fund, and you don't even want to go there. So we set the fund up, elected to become a regulated fund, send it off to the Commissioner. The Commissioner's come back and said, your fund's a complying fund. Now we can get around to actually doing what we really want to do inside that fund. We now start to get the trustees to do some really good decision making. But that's the bare bones of setting up one of these funds, a self-managed super fund, or as I prefer to call them, a family superannuation fund. Let's move on to the next section now. I'm Grant Abbott, signing off.